Familia mitú, today we are welcoming Senator Alex Padilla. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, Daniela, for giving me this opportunity and to be able to speak directly to the audience.
Yes, thank you. So let's jump right into it. Following your public confrontation with Kristi Noem at the press briefing, can you speak to what authority you have as a senator to inspect ICE detention facilities, and how do you plan to ensure detainees are treated with dignity and due process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question and speaks to why I was actually there. Because after months and months of trying to get information from the secretary, from the department overall, from the administration in general, about how and why they're going about immigration enforcement the way they are, I was able to at least secure a briefing from the Department of Defense. So I was in the federal building in West Los Angeles last week for a scheduled briefing when I caught wind of a press conference happening just down the hall. And so I asked my escort to secure building, a National Guardsman, an FBI agent, to if we can go listen in. They escorted me to the press briefing room, and I was listening when I had the audacity to ask a question. And despite how they treated me, we're going to keep asking questions. We're going to keep demanding answers. But it's not just me, right? I have a colleague in Senator Adam Schiff. We have a California delegation and others from around the country that we coordinate with. And so there have been visits to detention centers. There's, briefings in secure settings and everything in between, because what this administration doing is unconscionable. I think as you guys have had the conversations. If all they were doing is what they say they're doing, targeting only violent criminals, that'd be a very different discussion. But we've heard anecdotally of so many migrants who happen to be undocumented but are otherwise law-abiding, hardworking, tax-paying members of our community that are being victimized, that are being terrorized. That's not right. And so we're going to keep pressing until we get changes.
And just like the unlawful treatment you endured last week, yesterday, mayoral candidate Brad Lander was apprehended after trying to intervene at an immigration hearing. What can Congress do to stand up to an administration that's trying to intimidate those who are defending their communities, whether it's a seated member of the government, an elected official, or a citizen that's exercising their First Amendment rights?
Yeah, well, at a minimum, we got to keep calling it out and shedding light on what's happening here, because it is an abuse of power that we're seeing from the president on an ongoing basis every day, more and more extreme. Number two, keep asking people to not cower down, not to stay silent. That's what Donald Trump wants. We got to keep speaking up. We got to be demonstrating. We got to keep peacefully protesting to call out the situation for what it is, all in the hopes of getting some action from our Republican colleagues in Congress. Look, the last I checked, and we learned this in government class in high school, Congress is a co-equal branch of government. And right now, the Republican majority, both in the House and in the Senate, continues to give the administration pretty much everything that they want since the beginning of this term. We need Republicans to stand up for due process. We need Republicans to stand up for the Constitution. We need the Republicans to also join us in standing up for justice.
There's frequent political rhetoric about immigrants doing it the right way, as you mentioned. We've seen our communities being ripped apart. ICE is detaining people at court dates and immigration check-ins. What can be done to end these contradictory and harmful enforcement tactics?
Yeah. So again, the law is the law, but the way each administration chooses their policy to enforce the law has been different, right? From Trump back to Biden to Trump one to Obama to Bush, etc. But there's a smart way to do it, and then there's the unfair, unjust, inhumane way that this administration is doing it, calling out the hypocrisy. And I won't get into the hypocrisy of calling in the National Guard in Los Angeles versus what happened on January 6, 2021. That can be a whole other segment or episode here. But the hypocrisy of them saying all these immigrants are threats to national security, they're dangerous, then why are they going after immigrants in schools, in workplaces, in houses of worship? Again, Republican colleagues, wake up to the reality of what's going on and not the Trump rhetoric. If this was only targeting violent criminals, That would be one thing, but that's not what's happening here. More than 90% of migrants, more than 90% that have been detained by ICE going back to October have no serious criminal conviction. That's a data point. That's evidence. It's facts. It's just now being released. So what we've been suspecting for a long time, we now know to be true, and we hope now translates into maybe hopefully a change of policy, if not actually a change in the law.
Trump has ordered ICE operations to increase in Democratic cities. I mean, California is historically a Democratic state. Is California still a sanctuary state at this point?
So California is still a sanctuary state because state law does not change. And let's be clear on what that is or what that isn't. All the sanctuary law means at a city level or at a state level is, look, we're not going to commit state and local resources to do the federal government's job. It's the job of the federal government to enforce federal law. And we got to check them on how they're doing it to protect due process and other fundamental rights. But whether it's state law enforcement resources, local law enforcement resources, they're not the immigration officers. They're in charge of local public safety. We're not going to do the federal job for them. But to your point, what Donald Trump is doing is saying the quiet part out loud. We've known that this is nothing but a pure partisan political attack on Democrats or cities and states that elect Democratic leaders. And so that should be a wake up call again to our Republican colleagues. Is this a precedent that they're comfortable setting? Imagine if a Democratic president were making these threats. They would be up in arms, opposing it, challenging it, questioning it, demanding a change. Uh, but it all speaks to why I had to speak up at that press conference last week. When you hear the Department of Homeland Security suggest that it's the mission of the administration and the Marines to liberate Los Angeles from the governor and from the mayor. That is dangerous territory, since when it is the job of a president or an administration to decide which governors and which mayors that the people elected get to lead their cities. Constitutional crisis beyond just in the making. It's time for the people to wake up. They are waking up. Let's hope the demonstrations on No King's Day is just the beginning, not a one and done. But again, my colleagues in Congress on the other side of the aisle, it's time for them to start living up to their constitutional responsibilities and their oath of office.
And Senator Padilla, for DACA's 13th anniversary, you are calling for permanent protections through the DREAM Act. Why do you feel Congress should prioritize passing the DREAM Act?
Look, dreamers have been waiting much longer than they should have for Congress to act and provide the protection, the legalization, the pathway to citizenship that they so much deserve. That's not a partisan ask. We know that there's bipartisan support amongst the public in general, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Historically, there's been bipartisan support in Congress. But in this Trump era of divisiveness and chaos and cruelty, we're not seeing the willingness from our Republican colleagues right now. There's legal questions about the status in the courts. True protection and peace of mind and justice will come when Congress acts to protect not just DACA participants, but all dreamers.
Senator Padilla, thank you so much for your time speaking directly to our community that's being directly impacted. We appreciate the work you're doing for us. And
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
Everybody, please keep the faith and keep organizing.